Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aram Grigoryan from University of California, San Diego, and today I'm representing a joint work with Markus Möller from Bonn. The paper is called "The Theory of Auditability for Allocation and Social Choice Mechanisms." We study a very common problem when there is a centralized platform and participants for whom we are implementing a certain desirable outcome or a policy using a mechanism slash an algorithm. Think of selling goods in an auction or elections, voting, or a centralized object allocation, such as allocation of public school seats. In all these problems, the common feature is that there are individuals have type reports which act as data input, and we are using a mechanism slash an algorithm to compute the outcome based on this data input. And another common feature here is that in all these problems, there is incomplete information about those type reports. Participants know their own data input, but they do not necessarily observe that of the other participants. The question that we ask is, what if the designer or the clearinghouse, instead of announcing the outcome or implementing the outcome that it was supposed to do for that realization of the type reports, does something else? Will the participants be able to detect this deviation? In general, the answer is no, because of the limited information. Participants may observe the wrong outcome, and there may have no way to know that this is not the valid outcome of the mechanism, because the mechanism may have uh, resulted in that outcome under another type realization that is consistent with the knowledge that the particular participants have. Of course, if more participants know each other types, or people know more about the general type realization, would be easier to detect deviations from the mechanism. But more importantly, different mechanisms have different auditability properties, and that's what we study in this work. We define the auditability of the mechanism of the property that deviations can be detected by small number of individuals or with limited information. In particular, we define a measure called auditability index. And the auditability index is the smallest number such that many individuals can detect deviations from the mechanism. For example, if an auditability index of a mechanism is 5, it means that for any problem and any deviation, I can always find just 5 participants whose data input alone would tell me for sure that this could not have been the outcome of the mechanism. It's a natural and tractable measure that we apply for across wide range of applications to get very informative results about comparisons of auditabilities of prominent mechanisms. And we use auditability as an axiom to characterize classes of mechanisms with that. Here are the preview of some of the findings. First, we will use this theory for the auctions environment, and we study two particular well-known auction formats. In all these problems, think of auctioning a single good, and participants submit their bids independently, and the person with the highest bid, bidding the highest price, wins the object. But depending on the auction format, they may either pay what they bid, or they may bid the second highest price. So these are the well-known first price and second price auctions, and we talk about their auditabilities. It appears that these two mechanisms fall into the opposite spectrum of the possible range of auditability index. In particular, the second price auction is minimally auditable. There are problems and deviations where you need all the information about all the participants to exclude possibilities of deviations. Whereas the first price auction is more auditable if an outcome different from the one that what has supposed to be done is implemented. For any problem and any such deviation, there are always two participants who can detect this deviation. We find a similar stark contrast in prominent allocation mechanisms for school choice or object allocation. In the deferred acceptance mechanism is minimally auditable, meaning that we need all the participants to detect deviations, whereas the immediate acceptance mechanism has an auditability index of 2, and any deviations can be detected by just 2 individuals' private information. And we also use the theory for characterizing class mechanisms using this notion of auditability. Particularly, we find that the auditability index of 1 can be achieved only by a dictatorial mechanism, which is an impossibility result. However, if we restrict attention to symmetric mechanisms, we get another characterization, which says that the majority voting mechanism is the unique, most auditable symmetric mechanism, has the lowest auditability index among them. And finally, we apply the theory for choice with affirmative action, and we study the auditability properties of different reserves rules. In these problems, think of college admissions with affirmative action. There is an underlying score ranking, and there are distributional objectives, which we achieve by reserving part of the seats for particular beneficiary groups. And depending on how we process the reserve seat, that has implications for the final outcome. So there are different ways to implement reserve policies, and they are well studied. Our theory provides a very different angle from studying these reserves rules. In particular, we established that these reserves rules have different auditabilities, and then they can be compared, and we can find one that is less or least auditable. Yeah, this is just a preview of the results. I'll be very happy to answer questions, and thanks for your attention.